The high Wyoming plains always felt like home to me, deep in my bones. I'm Daniel, a land surveyor, 48 years old, and this land, these sweeping vistas, this clear, cold air, it's all I've ever known. My family's farm, passed down through generations, was more than just property. It was a living story, written in the soil, in the weathered fences, in the ancient cottonwoods lining the creek. I envisioned building a small retirement cabin on a particular bluff, a place where the sun sets in a blaze of glory over the mountains, a place I'd known since I was a boy, where I'd dreamed big dreams. It was a spot just perfect for Sophia and me, a quiet refuge after years of hard work, a testament to our future, our shared peace. Sophia. She was a whirlwind when she first arrived in our quiet town, a city girl with a dazzling smile and a laugh that echoed across the valleys. We met at the annual county fair, and she spoke with such fascination about the land, about my life, that I felt instantly drawn in. She had a way of making you feel like the most interesting person in the world. She adapted to rural life with an apparent ease, learning to ride, helping with the garden, even finding a certain joy in the quiet solitude. I thought I'd found my soulmate, someone who understood the deep, unspoken language of the earth as I did. My best friend, Pete, had been there since we were kids. He was family, closer than a brother. He was thrilled for me when Sophia and I got together, always saying how I deserved someone good. The three of us, we were a unit, a comfortable triangle of trust and shared history. I had a beautiful wife, a lifelong friend, and the promise of a peaceful future on the land I loved. What more could a man ask for? It was a foundation I believed was unshakable. Looking back now, the early signs were so faint, like the whisper of a distant wind, easily dismissed. Sophia had a penchant for expensive things, a casual dismissal of my old truck, a subtle pressure to upgrade things around the farm. Pete, always eager to please, seemed to amplify her desires, echoing her thoughts, always on her side in the smallest disagreements. I'd shrug it off, thinking it was just them getting along, a new dynamic I needed to adjust to. He had always admired my family's land. That much was true. I thought it was a shared appreciation, a bond over heritage. As we approached the plans for the cabin, a practical step after years of talking about it, things began to shift. The specific plot of land, the bluff overlooking the valley, needed to be formally transferred from the larger family trust to my individual name and then to Sophia and me jointly. It was a standard legal process, something I understood intimately as a surveyor, but also something that required time and attention to detail. Sophia started to become unusually insistent. "Oh, Daniel, you're always so busy with work. Let Pete and me handle the lawyers. Pete knows everyone in town. He'll make sure it goes smoothly." Her voice was light, dismissive of my experience, yet laced with an eagerness that felt just a little off. Pete immediately jumped in. "Yeah, buddy, think of it as our gift to you, taking the hassle off your plate. We'll get all the paperwork done, quick as a wink." A small knot began to form in my stomach. It wasn't that I didn't trust them, it was more that I felt sidelined. This was my dream, my land, my legacy. I usually handled all legal matters concerning the property myself. I knew the intricacies, the historical easements, the exact boundaries. But they were so enthusiastic, so earnest, that I found myself agreeing, albeit with a vague sense of unease. I tried to push it down, to tell myself I was overthinking things, that they were simply being helpful. Sophia started bringing up the idea of a joint project on the land, something beyond our cabin. She talked about developing a small, high-end vineyard. I laughed it off, saying it was a nice fantasy, but not practical for a small, remote plot in Wyoming. Pete, though, latched onto it, talking about soil composition and market potential with an unnerving familiarity. I brushed it off as playful banter, but the knot in my gut tightened. They started spending more time together, ostensibly researching the land for my cabin, but often I'd find them deep in conversation, their voices dropping to whispers when I approached. My questions about the legal paperwork were met with cheerful but vague assurances. "It's all in progress, honey, just a few more signatures. Don't you worry your head, Daniel, we're on top of it." I felt a growing sense of alienation from my own future, my own land. The psychological pressure escalated subtly. If I mentioned going to the land registry myself, Sophia would pout. Don't you trust us, Daniel? After all we've done to help. Pete would chime in. Come on, man, we're just trying to ease your burden. Their words were designed to make me feel guilty for even questioning them. I started to doubt myself, wondering if I was indeed being ungrateful, overly suspicious. The once clear air between us grew thick with unspoken things. I'd wake in the middle of the night, a cold dread washing over me, unable to pinpoint why. My usually steady hands would tremble. I'd stand on that bluff, looking at the distant mountains, feeling a profound sense of foreboding, a premonition I couldn't explain. The land, my comfort, felt wrong. It was a visceral feeling, a primal alarm bell ringing in the quiet chambers of my soul. I knew, with an awful certainty, that something was terribly wrong, something they were hiding. It was an intuition so strong it pushed through the layers of my trust and rationalizations. I couldn't shake it. The feeling gnawed at me day and night, a relentless toothache in my mind. One Tuesday, when Sophia said she was going to town with Pete to run errands, and I had a surveying job that would take me in the opposite direction, I changed my plans. I called my client, feigning a sudden illness, my voice catching in my throat as I told the lie. My heart hammered in my chest the entire drive into town, not towards my office, but towards the county courthouse. Each mile felt like a betrayal of my own beliefs, a descent into a suspicion I desperately wished was unfounded. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were white. The familiar landscape of my life, blurring past the windows, felt alien, distant. Inside the quiet, dusty records office, the air hung heavy with the scent of old paper and hushed secrets. My name? I asked the clerk, a kind old woman named Agnes who'd known me since I was a boy, to pull the records for my family's parcel, specifically the bluff lot. She gave me a gentle smile. Still planning that cabin, Daniel? Good for you. Her words felt like tiny knives twisting in my gut. I tried to smile back, a grimace I'm sure. My palms were sweating, my breath catching in my throat. When she finally placed the thick, leather-bound book in front of me, my hand trembled as I turned the brittle pages. And then I saw it. The transfer. Not to Daniel and Sophia. Not to Daniel. It was right there, stark and undeniable. A new deed, legally executed, for the prized bluff parcel. The owners were listed as Sophia and Pete. My eyes scanned the purpose clause, the small print that Sophia had always dismissed as boring legal stuff. It clearly stated, for the development of a jointly owned vineyard. The world tilted. The air left my lungs in a whoosh. It was like being punched in the gut, a gut punch so powerful it resonated through every cell of my body. My vision blurred. I couldn't breathe. My hands gripped the edges of the book so tightly I thought I might tear the page. Sophia, Pete, a vineyard, on my land, my family's land. They hadn't just taken a plot, they had stolen my legacy, my future, my very identity. The years of shared laughter, the quiet evenings, the unwavering trust, it all crumbled into ash around me. Every vague answer, every knowing look between them, every instance of their help now clicked into place, forming a horrifying mosaic of calculated betrayal. The room spun. I mumbled something to Agnes, I don't know what, my voice hoarse, unrecognizable even to myself. I stumbled out of the courthouse, into the blinding Wyoming sun, feeling like a ghost. The familiar world around me was a lie. The woman I loved, the friend I cherished, they had carved a piece of my soul out and were planning to plant grapes on its bleeding heart. The drive home was a blur. I gripped the wheel, my eyes stinging, but no tears came. Just a cold, hard rage that settled deep in my bones, chilling me to the core. I replayed every conversation, every instance of their help, every evasive answer, every subtle manipulation. It was all so clear now, a sickeningly intricate web woven around me, spun by the two people I trusted most in the world. The cabin, the dream, the future, it was all a mirage, a cruel joke. They had been planning this for months, perhaps even years. The thought made me physically ill. I pulled my truck onto the gravel shoulder, slumped over the steering wheel, and dry heaved until my stomach was empty and burning. The betrayal wasn't just about the land. It was a complete demolition of my reality, a shattering of my belief in human decency, in loyalty, in love itself. But beneath the crushing weight of despair, a spark of something else ignited. A cold, fierce resolve. They thought they had won. They thought they had me fooled. They thought they could simply walk away with my inheritance, my future. They were wrong. My mind, usually calm and deliberate, began to work with a chilling precision. I had the document. I had the truth. And I would use it. I wouldn't let them know I knew. Not yet. I needed to see their faces, to make them realize the full weight of their perfidy. I spent the next few days in a haze, moving through life like a robot. Sophia noticed my quietness, my distance, asking if I was feeling unwell. I lied, saying I had a stomach bug, a convenient truth given the churning in my gut. She fussed over me, her concern feeling like a fresh layer of grime on my skin. Pete called, asking if I was still planning to make it to the family picnic on Saturday. The family picnic. On that bluff. The sheer audacity, the sickening irony, fueled my resolve. I would be there. Saturday dawned bright and clear, the kind of perfect Wyoming day that used to fill my heart with joy. Now, it felt like a mocking backdrop to the coming storm. I packed a small bag with a thermos of coffee, a sandwich I knew I wouldn't eat, and carefully, deliberately, the fraudulent deed. My hands were steady as I folded the legal document, the crisp paper a tangible representation of their lies. When I arrived, Sophia and Pete were already there, a picnic blanket spread on the exact spot where I had dreamed of our porch. They waved cheerfully, a picture of domestic bliss. Sophia, in a sundress, looked radiant, her laughter echoing a little too loudly in the vast silence. Pete, ever the dutiful friend, was meticulously arranging a platter of cheeses and fruit. My stomach clenched. They were so comfortable, so oblivious, so utterly devoid of shame. I walked towards them, each step heavy, each breath a conscious effort. I greeted them, my voice flat, betraying nothing. Sophia asked if I was feeling better. I nodded, a thin smile on my face that felt like a mask. We sat down, a strained silence settling around us, broken only by the chirping of crickets and the whisper of the wind through the sagebrush. They chatted about trivial things, about the weather, about a new restaurant in town, about the progress on the cabin plans, about our vineyard idea. Each word was a fresh insult, a new twist of the knife. I watched them, truly watched them, for the first time without the distorting lens of my affection. I saw the glint in Sophia's eyes, the calculating shrewdness I had mistaken for charm. I saw Pete's nervous energy, his gaze flicking between Sophia and me, a dog trying to please two masters. After what felt like an eternity, as the sun began its slow descent, painting the sky in fiery hues, I cleared my throat. My voice, when it came, was calm, almost detached. There's something I need to show you both. I reached into my bag and slowly, deliberately, pulled out the folded document. I laid it on the picnic blanket, smoothing it flat. Sophia's gaze flickered to it, then back to me, a puzzled frown on her face. Pete's eyes, however, widened in immediate recognition, a tremor running through him. I pointed to the names on the deed, my finger tracing the bold letters. This is the deed for this land, this very bluff. And these, I said, my voice rising just slightly, are the new owners. Sophia's eyes followed my finger, and then she read the names. Her own name, Pete's name. The color drained from her face, leaving her ashen, cadaverous. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Pete stammered, his face a mosaic of panic and shame. Daniel, I can explain. He tried to reach for the document, but I pulled it back. There's nothing to explain, Pete, I said, my voice hardening, each word like a stone falling into a deep well. It's all right here. Transferred to you too. For a vineyard. My family's land. My dream. My legacy. I looked at Sophia, her eyes wide with a horrifying mix of fear and desperation. You planned this, didn't you? All of it. The help, the kindness, the joint project. It was all a carefully orchestrated scheme to steal from me. She finally found her voice, a choked whisper. Daniel, no. It's not like that. We just wanted to surprise you. To make a success of this land, for us. The audacity of her lie, even then, was breathtaking. I felt a surge of cold fury, but I kept my voice steady, betraying no outward sign of the earthquake raging inside me. You didn't want to surprise me, Sophia. You wanted to cut me out. You and my best friend, the two people I loved most in this world, conspired to take everything from me. I stood up, towering over them, the document still clutched in my hand. The setting sun cast long shadows, making them look small, insignificant. This isn't a picnic. This is a crime. And I will fight for what is mine. Every inch of this land, every generation of my family's toil, every ounce of my dignity. I will fight for it, and I will win. My voice rang out across the bluff, echoing the finality of my words. And when this is over, you too will be out of my life, legally and emotionally. Our ties are severed. All of them. I turned, leaving them silent and frozen on the blanket, and walked away, the fraudulent deed still in my hand, the taste of ash and cold resolve in my mouth. The world shattered that night. When I got home, the house felt empty, hollowed out, just like me. The rage gave way to a profound, suffocating grief. I crumpled onto the kitchen floor, the deed still clutched in my hand, and finally, the tears came. Hot, raw, guttural sobs that ripped through me, tearing at the fabric of my very being. I cried for the betrayal, for the loss of Sophia, for the friend I thought I had in Pete, for the future that had been so cruelly stolen. I cried for the man I thought I was, a man who had been so blind, so trusting, so utterly fooled. The pain was immense, physical, a crushing weight on my chest that made it impossible to breathe. I lay there for hours, the light fading outside, leaving me in darkness, mirroring the darkness inside. Eventually, exhaustion set in, a heavy blanket that dulled the edges of the pain. I drifted into a fitful sleep, waking in the pre-dawn hours with a start, the horror fresh again. But this time, something was different. The despair was still there, a constant ache, but alongside it, a flicker of something else. Clarity. I saw them for who they truly were, stripped bare of my illusions. Sophia, manipulative, driven by greed, seeing me only as a means to an end. Pete, weak, opportunistic, willing to sacrifice a lifelong friendship for a promise of wealth and perhaps, I now suspected, Sophia's affection. The awakening was brutal, but necessary. It was the birth of a new me, forged in fire. The first steps were the hardest. The very next morning, my eyes still swollen, my heart heavy, I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, but old man Peterson, a grizzled, no-nonsense attorney who had known my family for decades. His face, usually gruff, softened as I recounted the tale, the deed spread on his desk. He listened without interruption, his gaze steady, occasionally nodding. "Daniel," he said, his voice quiet, "this won't be easy. It'll be ugly. But we'll fight them. We'll fight them tooth and nail." His words were a lifeline in the churning sea of my despair. The legal battle was long, arduous, and excruciatingly public. In a small town like ours, news travels fast, carried on the wind like gossip. Whispers followed me everywhere. Some people looked at me with pity, others with thinly veiled judgment, wondering how a man could be so easily deceived. Sophia, surprisingly, stayed in town, her face a mask of wounded innocence, painting herself as the victim, claiming I was unstable, ungrateful, that it was all a misunderstanding. Pete disappeared for a while, only to resurface later, his eyes avoiding mine, his shoulders slumped. The separation from Sophia was a painful bureaucracy, divorcing not just a wife, but a life I had envisioned. I sold her car, changed the locks, slowly stripped her presence from my home. Each act was a small amputation, but with each one, a sliver of my old self was shed, making way for something new. I stopped going to my usual spots, avoiding familiar faces, retreating into the quiet solitude of my land. I poured myself into my work, burying my grief in the precise lines of my surveys, the cold logic of the land. It was a slow, painful process of disentanglement, of peeling back the layers of deception, finding my own truth. The trial itself was a grueling spectacle, laid bare in the sterile courtroom. My lawyer, Mr. Peterson, meticulously presented the evidence, the fraudulent deed, the timeline of their involvement, the blatant attempts to exclude me. Sophia's lawyers tried to discredit me, paint me as a paranoid husband, but the facts were undeniable. When the verdict came, the judge's voice clear and resounding, declaring the deed null and void, returning full ownership of the bluff parcel to me. A wave of relief washed over me, so profound it almost buckled my knees. I had won. The land was mine again. But the victory felt bittersweet, a hollow echo in the vast emptiness where my trust and love had once resided. The cost was immense. My marriage was destroyed, my oldest friendship irrevocably broken, my reputation scarred by the public spectacle. I was a man who had lost everything, even as I gained back my land. The land, that beautiful bluff that had been the focal point of so much pain, now lay before me, a blank canvas. The idea of building the cabin, the symbol of a future that no longer existed, felt tainted, impossible. Instead, a new vision began to form, born from the ashes of my old dreams. I wouldn't build a cabin there. I would transform it. I used a portion of the settlement money from the divorce. Sophia, surprisingly, settled quickly once the land was lost, to purchase adjoining parcels, expanding the acreage. I dedicated it to conservation. My family's land, the land that ran through my veins, would become a sanctuary. I worked tirelessly, clearing old fences, planting native grasses, restoring water sources. I partnered with a local wildlife organization, and together, we created a protected habitat, eventually becoming a haven for wild horses, those magnificent, untamed spirits that embodied the very owl of Wyoming. It was a long, slow journey of healing. I reconnected with my community, but on my own terms. I found solace in the quiet strength of other ranchers, in the camaraderie of conservationists, in the simple, honest work of tending to the land. The whispers faded over time, replaced by a quiet respect for what I was building. I learned to trust again, but with a new wisdom, a deeper understanding of human nature, its capacity for both darkness and light. My heart still carried scars, deep grooves etched by betrayal, but it was no longer hollow. It was full of a new purpose, a profound connection to something larger than myself. I often stand on that bluff now, watching the wild horses graze in the golden light of dawn, their manes flowing like molten gold in the wind. The cabin dream is long gone, replaced by something far more meaningful, far more real. I found a different kind of peace, a deeper joy in protecting this wild beauty, in ensuring this legacy for generations to come, not just for my bloodline, but for the land itself. I am Daniel, a man shaped by betrayal, but not broken by it. I am a man who lost a wife and a friend, but found himself, and in doing so, found a profound new way to live, rooted in the enduring strength of the Wyoming earth. The land heals, and so do I. I am free.